What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here coming back at y'all with a recap of the Orange Blossom Classic, and it was one hell of a game down in Miami. Jackson State pulling out the 7-6 win over FAMU, and I don't think our guy Off Script does a live call-in show. You guys commented your predictions on all on Cut Day's show, on Off Script show, on Coach Simmons, on CFLs. I mean, I don't think anybody predicted 7-6. I mean, that was an absolute defensive performance put on by especially Jackson State and also FAMU at times as well. I thought both teams played very well, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We're going to get into some of the struggles on the offensive side of the ball, some of the mistakes both teams made. But overall, it was an excellent game on ESPN2 to put in front of the entire world. And listen, I've been, I had time to listen to our Gal Scripts live show. I had time to go through some of the Facebook groups, things like that. If you thought this was a bad game, like it wasn't competitive, it wasn't that there wasn't great plays, there wasn't great players, there wasn't great execution at times, I don't think you tuned in to the same game that I watched and a lot of us watched. Just because a score is low doesn't mean it's a bad game. 7-6 in this game just meant there were two good teams that were fighting for a win, and they just matched up very well. It was the same thing that happened at Georgia Clemson this Saturday, which it was a 10-7 game. Both of those teams are great. Both of these teams will be great in the SWAC. All it was two, when you get two great teams together, sometimes it's not a high-scoring game because those defenses are going to play that well. And the strength, like I told y'all in the preview, the strengths of both of these teams are on the defensive side of the ball. So it was not a shock to me it was low scoring. It was a shock that FAMU didn't score a touchdown. Jackson State only got a QB sneak. But what it was great execution by the defense, and also some really bad errors on the part of Shador, McKay, and these teams just missing one or two plays, an overthrow there, a drop there, a missed block there, a penalty here. That was really the difference in the game. These two teams are not bad teams because they didn't score double-digit points. Anyone who says that did not watch the game and they don't understand football. But for me, I want to get to my initial takeaways from Jackson State. One, defense legit. Everything was advertised. And I told y'all I'd come on here. Everyone was saying, this person's riding this bandwagon. I'm not on anyone's bandwagon. I'm just here to cover football. Jackson State's defense is legit. And they were legit with missing some players. Shiloh didn't start until, I believe, the second quarter. Nugget was fighting cramps and also didn't start until the second quarter. They were playing without a full deck in the secondary, and on top of that, that defensive line looked outstanding. I mean, when you look at what they did, they held FAMU to 234 yards, 5 for 17 on third downs, and they established the line of scrimmage. What I loved, so I said it on the roundtable with Scotty, CFL, and HBCU Spotlight. Their defensive game plan was similar to what I wanted to see out of FAMU. They were multiple in their looks. They were bringing people down. They were moving people around. They were stunting on the defensive line. And what it was doing is creating confusion on the FAMU offensive line, and they weren't communicating any part of what was going on in the Jackson State defense. Niles Gaddy came unblocked, I think, 4 times in the first half. And when I say unblocked, I mean there wasn't a player within 2-3 yards around him, came untouched flying into the quarterback. They had some defensive tackles absolutely wreak havoc on their matchups. Owens, the transfer from Georgia Tech, made a lot of great plays in which he was busting through the line and really stopped that very first FAMU drive that was getting to go in early in the game. So for me, the defensive line looked outstanding. The linebackers did their thing, and the secondary overall did their part. They were great in the open field. Shiloh was almost an enforcer type on the back end of that defense. The Jackson State defense, outstanding job. And, before we get into, any criticism of FAMU or Jackson State's game plan, for me, I thought Shador did exactly what I thought he was going to do, exactly what I told Jackson State to do on our preview. just get the ball to your playmakers. You don't have to do anything special. I think he threw one deep ball, and it was the one to Lanier up the middle of the field, which was ended up drop when Marquise Bell kind of got in there. But it looked like it was more a Lanier drop. For me, you don't have to do anything special. Yes, the route tree was simple. Yes, the offense was simple. But for me, it was how he handled that moment. And yeah, I get it. He was kind of a, at this point in this game, he was a bit of a game manager, but that's all he needed to be in this game. You didn't need him to go out there and win you the game. Your defense did that for you. Your playmakers on the outside could do it for you. 18 for 24, 221, no interceptions, fine with me. That's going to get you through this game. Now, do I think you're going to have to score more in other games? Absolutely, because if FAMU had I guess any sort of quarterback play, they probably would have put up more than 6 points. But for right now, your defense is playing well. Why overcomplicate things? I thought they ran the ball well with Pickett. Marshall had a few nice carries, even though he was a bit more inconsistent than Pickett was. And for me, Trevante Rucker and Josh Lanier are a problem, an absolute problem. Rucker is that one-on-one guy. He went up there and made some just monster catches for Shedeur, and Lanier is that just underneath quick guy where, man, they were trying to trade off linebackers on him when he was coming across the drag. He's too fast for that. You have to put a DB on him. You're not going to be able to cover him with an underneath linebacker. You're going to have someone trail him or pick him up on the other side because he is going to outrun a linebacker, and you saw it time and time again. He had 61 yards on 6 catches. Rucker had 83 and three receptions. The offensive line played well in pass block, but I want to see them go up against a better D-line. I want to see them go up against a Southern and Alabama State D-line, someone like that, because for me, FAMU played just the most basic defense. I mean, that was the most plain defense you could absolutely play. You didn't try anything. They ran 4 down linemen, and they rushed right where they were lined up. They didn't stunt, they didn't shift, they didn't bring creative blitzes. It was like, listen, we're going to show you exactly what we're going to do. You're going to look to the sideline, you're going to change it, and we're going to do exactly what we showed you the first time. Horrible defensive play calling. And I thought they did well in that. Their run blocking on the outside was pretty good, but I got questions about the 2 guards in the center and the interior. There were times where they kind of got blown up when they tried to run up the middle. And I think that's going to be something to watch, but I'm not going to criticize them too hard. It was the first game, and for me, I thought they played pretty well for the first game with a almost all-new offensive line. I want to get to FAMU. Listen, if I need someone to submit me the fall and summer camp footage from however Rashawn McKay won this QB battle. That was atrocious. He averaged 2.7 yards per pass, was 18 for 29 for 78 yards. That cannot happen. That is a horrible stat line. And I thought the junior kid who came in behind him as the backup played a little bit better. He had a lot more zip on the ball. His arm strength was there, and I thought he was a better overall quarterback. But for me, the fact that McKay got to throw the ball 29 times, complete lack of game planning and adjustments made by FAMU's offense. Bonnet and Jennings were eating. Bonnet 76 yards, and he was averaging over 5 yards per carry. Jennings 35 yards, over 5 yards per carry. For me, how did they not get more carries? You gave Jennings and Bonnet the ball 22 times the entire game, and McKay had 29 passes in 3 quarters. Why are you putting the ball in McKay's hands? Why didn't you bring X or one of your athletes on the outside around on a jet sweep or get them the ball in space? The offensive game plan was all out of whack for FAMU. They didn't look prepared. They looked overwhelmed by the moment. And for me, the offensive line and McKay and whoever's the O-line coach down there in Tallahassee got to go. That was atrocious offensive line play. And I don't have the film yet. I'm going to try to see if I can get with Cut and get me some film. But for me, Jackson State's walking 6, 7, sometimes 8 people in the box. And you got the running back on the wrong side of the protection. They're overloading the right side. The running back's on the left. And then the offensive line slides left. And Niles Gaddy comes untouched. Elementary school kids understand that you have to block that side of the ball. Middle school players can make that adjustment. That is just poor football IQ on the entire FAMU offensive line. The fact that they weren't pointing out blocks, they weren't pointing out adjustments, nothing. They weren't communicating at all. They were like, hey, it's us 5 against these 4. No, it's not. And just the complete lack of football IQ on the offensive line was nauseating to watch. And I'm going to pull some film we cut and get you all that. But the fact that Niles Gadding and some other players came off the edge untouched. Niles Gadding himself had 5 that I counted where he came, didn't even get a single soul, looked at him coming off the edge, and he about killed McKay. That cannot happen. If you are playing college football on scholarship, you got to be better than that. And the offensive line play for FAMU was atrocious. I thought they ran the ball well up the middle, and that's where I think Jackson State's D-line's got to improve. The D tackles were over-pursuing, getting too far up the field, and Bonnet and Jennings were able to get behind the D-lineman and find that crease as the defensive tackles were coming up too far. If it's a defensive tackle, you got to set your gap and make sure you stay there, and then shuck once you see where the running back's going. They were just bull rushing the offensive linemen, and the running backs were cutting in behind them. That's going to be a problem as you face better and better running backs. So that's like the one thing I thought FAMU did well and that Jackson State needed to improve on. But as we get to our next segment, it's really, and I've heard this asked a few times, can anyone compete with Jackson State? And, I think they can. I don't think they're going to cakewalk to an undefeated season like some people think. It was a 7-6 win. Yes, the Shador's fumbles really helped, and they had the one turnover where Bonnet just snatched the ball from a linebacker from Jackson State, which could have been a huge score. But for me, when you look at some of the inconsistencies that Jackson State had, in terms of running the ball at times, they were 3 for 14 on third down. I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. I still think they're going to run into an Alabama A&M team that's going to give them some problems. I still think at the end of the season, Southern and Alcorn could give them a run for their money. But for me to say they're just going to blow everyone out on the way to an undefeated season is just incorrect. That's a typical week 1 overreactions that I hate all across college football. Jackson State won this game. Jackson State played well, but I don't think they're just a shoe-in for the SWAC championship right now. Yes, Alabama A&M's got defensive problems, but that offense ain't putting up 6 points. Yes, Southern got blown out by Troy, but Jackson State ain't Troy. And yes, Alcorn looked terrible week 1, but what are they going to look like in week 12? Teams evolve, teams get better. So for me, I still think those are the 3 tough games. But right now, Jackson State looked amazing. And for me, I thought they looked exactly like they should have week 1. I thought they did some stuff really well. I thought they had some places to improve. One, they got to get healthy. You got to get Nugget back. I think Lanier went off in like the third quarter. I'm hoping it's just cramps, but someone said it could be a pulled groin. They also were missing a few other pieces. So at wide receiver, due to some off the field stuff, they just got to get their full team back. Jackson State's fine, guys, and for me, I'm really excited to see what this team does. They get Tennessee State next week, 6 p.m. Central Time on the 11th. So that'll be a huge. A really good test against the Tennessee State team that played pretty well against Grambling today. And Florida A&M gets Fort Valley on the 11th as well at 5 p.m. So that should be a pretty good bounce back game for FAM, I would assume. But guys, comment your thoughts of the game below. Comment your biggest takeaways. What do you think Jackson State's future is going to be? FAMU, what were your biggest takeaways from the game? Just comment on your opinions below. I'll try to get with y'all the best I can. But guys, if you're new, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button as well. Appreciate all the support. Guys, I hope y'all had a great weekend. If y'all were down in Miami, I'm super jealous about that. But guys, for right now in the Blue Bloods, we are out.